I'm going to give you 2 reasons to not be worried about Donald Trump's executive orders and 1 reason to be worried. Presidents cannot make laws. Only Congress makes laws. But that's literally all Congress can do. Congress just literally writes on a sheet of paper that says there ought to be a law that does blah, 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 and then they walk away. And it's the job of the president and his departments and all of his secretaries to pick up that piece of paper and make sure the law happens. And sure, a president can suggest a law, a president can veto a law, but he cannot make a law. If he wants a law to exist, he has to ask Congress nicely. However, sometimes Congress passes a law that has a little wiggle room in it, and that's where an executive order comes in. So let's say Congress passes a law that says there can't be any poisonous chemicals in the water, but they don't define a poisonous chemical. That leaves wiggle room for the president to interpret how he's going to enact that law. Maybe that president says, I'm going to ask the EPA to define dangerous chemical and just go with whatever they say. Maybe that president says, I'm going to let your local health department decide what is and isn't a dangerous chemical in your area. Maybe that president says RFK is going to take peyote, sit for 9 hours in a sweat lodge and come out and declare what is and isn't a dangerous chemical. Whatever. What the president decides to do in that wiggle room, that's what an executive order is. But an executive order cannot nullify those laws, which is my number 1 reason why you shouldn't be so worried about all of Donald Trump's executive order. If Congress passes a law that says there should be no poisonous chemicals in the drinking water, and the president writes an executive order that says there should be a lot of poisonous chemicals in the drinking water, the executive order is null. It's invalid. It just gets thrown out. But that doesn't happen automatically. If a president issues an invalid executive order, a federal judge first freezes it or blocks it, and then there's a whole process where lawyers from the White House and lawyers from public institutions get together. They try to argue clearly why this order is not valid. A judge has to write up the reasoning for why it's invalid, and then the order gets thrown out. Trump signed like 40 executive orders in his first week, and a lot of them are going to be declared invalid or partially invalid. Already, one of the transgender ones has been blocked by a federal judge. The freezing of people's Medicare and SNAP has been blocked by a federal judge. The attempt to rescind the 14th Amendment has been blocked by a federal judge. All of that is the first step to them being officially invalidated. Yes, the orders can cause all sorts of confusion and chaos and damage while that legal process is working its way through, but at least that legal process has already begun. Reason number 2, not to be super worried about them, is even if an executive order goes into effect, the next president is allowed to just nullify them. They're not permanent. But now I'm going to give you my 1 reason why I still am worried about them. Even though these orders are mostly for show, they're performative, they're bullshit, they're going to get nullified, they still will have an effect on the culture. Many Americans will never realize that they've been invalidated. Many Americans will never realize there's a difference between an executive order and a law. There will be people on the left and the right who years from now are going to think these things are still in effect. Also, people are going to see the highest office in the land doing these performative executive orders that are anti-trans, anti-women, anti-immigrant, and that's going to encourage the bobbleheads out there in the world to start yelling at people for speaking Spanish at the Walmart. They're going to feel emboldened and encouraged to be horrid to trans people at their school. So even if those executive orders have no legal power, they still have the power to fuck up people's lives and make people miserable.